This is the trigonometry unit for the semester 2 exam. Which angle represents, is shown in the diagram here? Well, it's negative because it's going down, and it looks like it's up higher. So I'm going to say that this is probably 60 degrees past the x-axis. So this would be pi, and then this would be 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, or 4/3, sorry. 4/3, negative 4/3. That would be 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, and 4/3. Alright, 13 pi over 6. 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's going to be 360 plus 30 additional. 390. What is a reference angle for 560 degrees? Well, 360 is here. 90 more would be 450. 540. So 560 would be 20 degrees past this x-axis. So your reference angle is 20 degrees. And it's always a positive value. Let theta be an acute angle of a right triangle. Okay. Five twelfths, opposite over adjacent. So 5 squared plus 12 squared equals 13 squared. So my hypotenuse is 13. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so sine would be opposite over hypotenuse, so this is hypotenuse over opposite, so 13 over 5. You decide to ride your bike off some jumps. To accomplish this task, you would build a ramp with an angle of elevation 33 degrees. Part of the ramp resting on the ground is 6 feet long. How long is the actual ramp? So this is a cosine question of adjacent over hypotenuse. So you multiply and divide, so x equals 6 divided by cosine of 33. You need to be sure you're in degree mode for whenever you type it in trig degree values. So this is 6 divided by cosine of 33 gives us 7.15. You have just purchased a medium-sized pizza with a radius of so much, central angle with a stuffed crust. How long is the crust of the pizza? Alright, so they're talking about the circumference. This particular year we did not do this question. Okay, you could use your geometry skills. What's it talk about here? The radius is 5. So you could say that 60 degrees out of 360 degrees equals our arc length. Let's see what it's talking about. Over this circumference, which is 2 pi r. Well, our r said that the radius was 5. So this is 10 pi. How long is the crust? So that's the arc length. That's the value that we're calculating here. So 10 pi times 60. 10 times pi times 60 divided by 360 gives you 5.2. There it is. But this isn't our question. They probably wanted us to do it in radian, and no need. We're not going to have that on our exam. Okay, we'll evaluate. Well, 2 pi over 3 is over here. And this is -1/2 root 3 over 2. So this is our sine and cosine. Secant is the reciprocal of sine, so it would be -2. Negative pi over 3 is going to be 1/2 negative root 3 over 2. And we want the cotangent. So we don't want sine over cosine. We actually want cosine over sine. So that's 1/2 times the reciprocal. So that's -1 over root 3. So when you rationalize the denominator, you get negative root 3 over 3. We have a point that lies outside of our unit circle. What is the cosecant? This is going to be -3, -4. So -3, -4. That's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. There's our angle. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So opposite over hypotenuse. So we need to do hypotenuse over opposite. So -5/4. Find the value of theta. So we need to do sine inverse of 0.7. So again, you need to be in the correct mode. That's 44.43. So it looks like that's our answer, right? But they want our answer in this quadrant. Well, let's talk about this real quick. At 44 degrees, we have a y value that's at about 0.7. Well, here in the second quadrant, we also have a value that is 0.7 above the x-axis. So what is that angle? It's an angle that is greater than 90, but less than 180. If this one is 44, this one is going to be 180 minus 44. And we get 135. There it is. going to climb up on your roof. You're going to place your ladder, which is 20 feet long, 5 feet away from the house. The question is, what is the angle? So this is a cosine. So we have cosine of theta equals 5 over 20. So theta is going to be cosine inverse of 5 over 20. So to do that, you need to be sure you're in degree mode. So cosine inverse of 5 over 20 should be 75.52 degrees. Here's our triangle. What is the possible measure of angle C? So angle B is 32 degrees. Side B is 18. It's across from it. And side A, so this is an ASS triangle, angle side side. So for us to figure this one out, there could be two triangles here. Let's do the sine of 32 equals the height over 28. And that's 14.8. So yes, and that looks like 14.84. So yes, it's going to touch the ground and it could swing both directions. So we could have two different angle values for this. So we'll start with the law of sines. We have 28 over the sine of A. That equals 18 over the sine of 32. So we're going to take 28 and times the sine of 32 and divide that by 18. And we're going to get 0.8243. That equals the sine of A. So sine inverse of that answer, if you want to use the answer button, ANS, should give us the measurement of angle A as 55.52. Okay, that's a tricky one, but that's angle A. We want angle C, which is 180, minus 55.52 minus 32. We're hoping that that's the answer. So 180 minus our previous answer minus 32 should give us something in the 92 zone. Oh, trickery. Okay. So that's not the one that they're providing us. So what's going to happen is they're going to swing this in, and now we're going to go in that direction. So we take our angle A, we do the supplement of angle A. So we have 124.48. So 180 minus 124.48 minus 32 gives us 23.52. There's our answer. And it was a tricky one. So they looked for the angle C of the second triangle, not the first triangle. So this here was the measure of angle C, triangle 1, and 180 minus 124.48 minus 32, which was 23.52, was measure of angle C, triangle number 2. In triangle ABC, we have two angles in the side. We're going to find the approximate value of side A. So side C, side at angle A, angle B. For us to find this one, we first need to know what angle C is. So 180 minus 44 minus 51. That gives us 85. Now we can use law of sines. So 11 over the sine of 85 equals side A, and that's what we're looking for, over the sine of 51. Cross multiply one direction. And we're dividing by the sine of 85. That gives us 8.58. 8.58 rounds to 8.0 or 8.6. The farmer is planting corn in the shape of a triangle where two sides of the cornfield are 800 and 600. If the angle in between is 40, what is the area? So the area is going to be half. Now we know the area to be half of base times height. And to calculate the height, that is, the sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So this ends up being 600 times the sine of 40 times 800. So we usually write it 600 times 800 times the sine of 40. This is the same thing. So you can take half of that if you wish. So 300 times 800 times the sine of 40. And we get 77,134.51. That's not what I see here. I just noticed that I took half of the 600, but I apparently took half of the 800 also. I shouldn't do that. I should take half of the 600 and times that by 800 times the sine of 40. Alright. Now the units are wrong because these are meters and these are feet. But that's just a misprint there. But now our numbers match up. I had a 400. I should not have had a 400. We're looking for 154,269.026. which rounds to 0.03. Looking for angle B. So side A is across from angle A, side B is across from angle B, and side C is across from angle C. Angle B is going to be the largest, so that makes sense. So we're going to say B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC cosine of B. So we're going to say 9 squared. We'll subtract over the A squared. We'll subtract over the C squared. We'll divide this by -2 times the A value times the C value. And that's going to give us the cosine of B. (9 squared minus 6 squared minus 7 squared). That's -4 divided by, you have to use parentheses, -2 times 6 times 7. And there we have cosine of B equaling 0.0476. So we're going to do cosine inverse of 0.0476. And that gives us an 8627. Or sorry, not 86, that's 87.27. That still matches. That's good. Multiple choice helped me there. I didn't read my calculator right. Alright, what's the length of side A? Alright, they have an obtuse angle here, so let's draw this looking like obtuse. Just helps out a little bit. So 108, so side A. Side B. Side C. So this would be A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2 times BC cosine of A. So that's going to be A squared equals 9 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 9 times 7 cosine of 108. Minus 2 times cosine of 108. And that gives us A squared equaling 168.94. And when we take the square root of that answer, we get A to be 12.997, which is just about 13. What is the area of the triangle? So we have an 8, 9, and 11. We're not sure which one is which. It doesn't really matter. We need to find the semi-perimeter. Alright, that's half of 11 plus 9. That's 20. Plus 8, 28. So half of that is 14. So the area is going to be the square root of 14 times 14 minus 11, 14 minus 9, 14 minus 8. So we have 14 times 14 minus 11, 14 minus 9, and 14 minus 8. So this is the square root of 1260. Just showing some work. So 35.5. And that's the area. Use the sine function to write an equation that has an amplitude of 4 and a period of 1/3. Has a period of 1/3. Well, we know the period equals 2 pi divided by b. So we're going to say that 1/3 equals 2 pi divided by b. If I cross multiply, I know that b is going to be 6 pi. So this is a sine function. An amplitude of 4 sine of 6 pi x. Last page here. Describe the shift of the function. We're going to translate sorry about that. Students barking out maybe. Okay, we're going to try translate pi units left and 1 unit down. That's the only shifting that there is. There's no other transformations. That's the shift. That's your translate. That's what's going on. Your h is actually negative pi. So that's why it's to the left. And the k value is -1. Give the maximum and minimum points. Alright. Okay, they use the word points here. It's not really points, I don't think. Usually when you talk about max or mins, those are just straight up y values, but we'll talk about it. So we know that the sine graph, being negative, is going to go down, up, and back down. We know our b value is this guy. So the period is going to be 2 pi divided by b, which is 2 pi times 3 over 2, which is 3 pi. So this guy is 3 pi. The increments are going to be 3 pi divided by 4. So this spot here is 3 pi divided by 4. This one is 6 pi divided by 4, which is 3 pi divided by 2. This one here is, this is 3, 6, 9, 9 pi divided by 4. And then this one is 12 pi divided by 4, which is 3. That worked out great. So this is going down 2. And this is going up 2. Now we also have to translate it to the right, pi over 2. So our maximum height is 2 and negative 2. But if we want the actual points for this, then we are going to take 3 pi over 4, and we will add pi over 2 to it. We're adding it because it's translating to the right. So we need common denominators. So we get 5 pi over 4. I believe that is our location. And our maximum is 9 pi over 4 plus 2 pi over 4, which is 11 pi over 4, and we're at a height of 2. Phew! What is the period in this guy? Well, the b value looks like it's 1, so we know the period equals 2 pi divided by b, so this is 2 pi divided by 1, that's just 2 pi. Alright, so here we have the period equals 2 pi divided by pi, the b value. So we know we're going to end at 2, and the increments is going to be 2 divided by 4, which is 1/2, with 0, 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves, and 4 halves. So that's our period. Looks great. We know that our normal graph of sine of pi x would be 0, 1, 0, negative 1, and 0. But now when we do 3 times sine of pi x, we're going to land 3 times that amount. So we're at 0. And then at our first increment, will be up 3, back to 0, then we're down 3, and we're back to 0. We've got 1/2 and 1, 3 halves and 2. This is a height of 1, 2, and 3. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Now, okay, I guess that's pretty much it. That was the graph y equals 4 sine of pi x. If we wanted to do y equals sine of pi x, kind of the parent function, that's what that would look like. We have an amplitude of our final graph, that's 3, a period of 2 we calculated, and an axis of y equals 0. So whatever the k value is, and there is no k value. Here, the period equals 2 pi divided by, alright, let's make this complicated. We'll make this 3 pi divided by 2. So now this is 2 pi times the reciprocal. So the pi's cross off and we get 4/3. So now we're going to take 4/3 and divide that by 4 to find the increments, which means 4/3 times 1/4, which is 1/3. So 0, 1/3, and then 2/3, and then 3/3, and then 4/3, and that's what we said the period was. So that worked out great. So now we can do cosine of 3/2 pi x, which would be 1, 0, -1, 0, 1. And then when we do half that amount, we are going to be at 1/2 0, -1/2 0 and 1/2. So let's go up a little extra here. We'll call this 1, this -1. And the first graph would have started here. We would have been at 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3. There's 1 and -1. And then we are going to label that graph as cosine of 3/2 pi x. Now we're going to take half of that. And that's equal to half cosine 3/2 pi x. The amplitude is 1/2. The period is 4/3. And the axis is still y equals 0 because the k value is 0. Last one. Here we're going to first work with y equals, we'll do the -2 with this one, of 3x. Well, 3 is your b value. So the period is going to be 2 pi divided by 3. And your increment is going to be 2 pi divided by 3 divided by 4. And that's 2 pi divided by 3 times the reciprocal. And that reduces. So this is pi over 6. So we're at 0 pi over 6, and then 2 pi over 6, and 3 pi over 6, and 4 pi over 6, which is 2 pi over 3, which is what we said the period was. Beauty. So now sine is typically 0, 1, but we times it by -2. 0, usually -1, so now it's 2. Alright, so we're going to graph that one. So we'll call that 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. -1, -2, -5, -6. Our increments are pi over 6, pi over 3, pi over 2, 2 pi over 3. So we'll be at -2. This is sine, so it starts at 0. -2. back to 0, then positive 2, back to 0. So negative 2 sine of 3x. Now we're going to translate this 4 units up. So this is our negative 2. It's opening, it's going down for a sine function. We've changed the increments, so it's 3. And it's been translated upwards 4. So the amplitude is still 2. It's the absolute value of the A. The period we calculated to be 2 pi divided by 3. And the axis is their K value, which is 4. Alright, this uses the word translation vector. We're not, vector is the wrong term here. We're just going to call this the translation. And we are 4 units up. And if we wanted to talk about key points, we could say that we have a point at 0, 4. We have a point at pi over 6, 2. Pi over 3, 4. Pi over 2, 6. And 2 pi over 3, 4. Those would be the critical points that we have labeled throughout the entire graph. Good job, everybody.